Yeah. Okay. And Dwayne Murray was the fourth founder. Yeah, he had worked with me before Excelan at Lynch for several years, and he had done his way, and I had started my own. And George Powers was one of the early. Were you on the Penguins, George?
I was, Penguin, as it were.
Yeah. So there were 7 of us who braved very cold winter without heat. Yeah, the first year we were there, the building was unfinished. We had to move in, and there was no heat. So we were Penguins, and George was one of those. And Dwayne was, of course, Penguin too. And Jim joined us right after the financing.
Nope, I got there just after the Penguin days.
Oh, just after the Penguin days, yeah. Yeah, we had just moved up. We got the money. We finished the place up, and we moved up. And so the team is there. Is Vish Mishra ready too or no?
Vish just emailed me. He did accept, but he said he has to be somewhere else, so he just dropped
All right, that's fine. So Vish was a VP of Operations Manufacturing. Jim was our CFO, and Dwayne and I did most of the early designs. And George was initially a customer service customer support guy, but he became TCP IP expert, and he moved over to software side, right?
Yeah.
And so he did a lot of software writing after that. And so here we are.
Yeah. So I think for this, as Kanwal mentioned, most of you have seen it. I've already had one-on-ones with Dwayne, John, Jim, actually, and George. So Kanwal, I've actually sat down with each person individually the last couple of weeks. And so I think the agenda here, and we may not need full 2 hours, is to just align as much as we can to the storyline and to any facts like pricing and any other decisions. And hopefully when Greg joins also, we can, because one of the things about case studies in business school is we need to have these moments where there's like fork moments, and so that's what happens in MBA classrooms is they discuss.
I'll tell you back later. What
would you have done? So maybe if we can have any kind of anecdotal fork moments that we can talk about. And so with me in the room, so it's myself, and with me is also Evan.
Hi. Nice to meet you all. Sorry to lurk. Yes.
Yeah. No. Evan is a friend, but also been a mentor to me. And when he heard about this, he was like, "Oh, I'd love to be." He's going to help, and he's got a lot of interest as an entrepreneur and an angel investor and all this. So he's going to quietly lurk, but I hope he actually actively non-lurks. So yeah. Okay. So I have this.
So let me give you a little bit of my perspective. Yeah. So when we started the company in 1982, there were no networking standards. We were going to network. We were going to do networking because PCs were happening, desktop computers were happening, mini computers were there. So we had this general notion of networking them using Ethernet. Ethernet became the glue because specs were published by digital intelligence, but there were no software standards. So we did the hardware, and now what? There was the issue of now what? And even in the hardware, we had this issue. Our co-founder, Dr. Inder Singh, was never able to make up his mind as to what we are doing. He never gave up on the other standards, beyond Ethernet. We're going to do total range, we're going to do total bus, we're going to do this. And on Proton side, he could never make up his mind, what we could do. So we ended up having hardware with no software and very thin effort. And of course, we got in trouble very quickly. We got in trouble with our investors too, because we were going nowhere fast. And in the process of this, Inder got sort of fired. They have stories a little bit more complex, but got fired by the board, and I stepped in as a interim CEO.
So Kanwal, just on that point of a decision wasn't being made on which protocol to support, how did it manifest that this was the wrong decision? Like, was there an aha moment that sales weren't happening, or
we had no software, no protocols of any type. Decision, since we were not able to decide which protocols to do, we did nothing. So we ended up having hardware, bare hardware that we were trying to sell, as a simple Ethernet driver, with no software. And so Inder got fired, and I was pushing for TCP/IP, software. TCP/IP was not a standard, was not very widely used yet, and but it was available in a public domain with the Berkeley 4.1c release at that time, Berkeley Unix release. And so as soon as Inder got fired, I got to play the field myself. I hired this outside consultant, to convert, port the Berkeley BSD onto our boards. Paid him, $20,000 or so. And so by the time I became CEO, we had something to ship to our Unix vendors. And we were
software. You mean software?
Yeah, some software. Sort of ported from the Berkeley sources, which were sort of public domain at the time. This is the early days of open software. Open software didn't happen later, but Berkeley software was open software, right? And we had the OEMs. We had tons of OEMs, but none of them was buying any volume. And we had this other part, system level part called NutCracker. We were not funded to do a system level part, but we had done one, and it had consumed lots of money and lots of effort. And it wasn't quite working very well either. It was priced at $50,000. So when I inherited the company, we had hardware only, NutCracker sort of shipping, but having problems in the field, and and roughly about $800,000 in the bank, of the cash. So I came in, with a mission to clean the. When I got the battlefield promotion, first thing I did was to had two guys clean up my NutCracker. I reduced the price down from 50,000 to 25,000, and say sell the inventory we have. We're not doing any more stuff on that one. Right. I hired these two consultants to do the porting of TCP/IP to our hardware, and that got done. So now NutCracker is starting to ship. We're getting some money. There was $1 million worth of inventory of NutCracker, which was sort of money tied. And as we started to sell NutCracker, that inventory started to turn into cash. That was the secret weapon, in addition to the money that we had in the bank. And now I sat back and said, what do we do? OEMs are not buying, but we decided to package this stuff into end user packages to ship to end users directly. And we decided to simplify the problem by saying, we'll offer TCP/IP on Unix, a couple of versions of Unix. We'll offer TCP/IP on VATS, VMS, and we'll offer TCP/IP on IBM PC. And we'll have the end user packages, and I bet the farm on that idea, while we are selling the NutCrackers to turn the inventory into cash. And so we had like 6 months worth of life in us. And it took us 3 months to convert, build those end user packages. They were ready. I became CEO in March. They were ready by June, if I remember right. Dwayne can correct me, or Jim can correct me. And we had to advertise to the end users to buy our stuff when it was going to be ready. But stuff wasn't quite ready. So I had to risk that we have to advertise before the stuff is ready, because by the time stuff is ready, I need to have a demand. And so I started spending the money, the scarce amount of money that I had, $50,000 a month, which, by the way, was a lot of money back then. on advertising. The ads opened up in May.
So what time frame? Just I wanted to get time frames aligned. So at what point in the year did you decide to bank on TCP/IP?
So I became CEO, interim CEO in March of 1985.
Okay.
If somebody can correct if my memory is not serving me right. And I hit the debt running. Immediately made a decision, to do the TCP/IP. Hired those guys. I had been talking to them as a VP of engineering anyway. Turned them loose. You don't do it. I hired, I think one person. By the way, in this process, I also laid off 1/3 of the company. We laid off 1/3 of the company because had to conserve the cash. But I hired this one guy to finish my NutCracker product, package it up properly, fix up the bugs that I see. I need this thing, with no problems. And I can't remember his name. Dwayne, you might remember his name. He was one of those hippies from the mountains.
I cannot remember.
Yeah, but you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did a very nice job, of finishing NutCracker, and I lowered the price from 50,000 to 25,000 so I could move it. We gave everybody 50% discount, and that turned out to be a very good idea because there were 40 units worth of inventory that we had bought the year before, which was in chips and boxes, and all the cash was tied up, and that $1 million worth of inventory freed up. So my thing was very strong decisions. TCP/IP, end user packages, discount the NutCracker, and see if I can raise ahead of my impending death. and by July we saw some signs, early signs. Some demand. NutCracker started to move because of the lower price. The early demand. So stuff is happening. And I will talk about the pricing in a minute separately.
And can you? So I've heard from Jim, maybe George, Dwayne, on what NutCracker was, but my understanding was it was network analysis, but for developer tooling, not end user yet, right?
Well, it was a sort of undefined. It was a poorly defined product. It was a Unix box, with an Ethernet board, was capturing traffic, at a hardware speed. To what end was left very poorly defined. And that was one of the developers could use it because it had a poor interface and a functionality that they could understand. End user could not use it. The functionality wasn't quite there, and there was no time and money on my part to do the end user type of work. So my thing was, can I convert that inventory into cash? I wasn't thinking of NutCracker as my strategic future.
Well, we were also designing another product.
Yeah. Well, that came a little bit later.
The analyzer.
Yeah, that came a little bit later, right? Because we didn't design any special hardware for that one. We used the standard hardware for that one, right? For NutCracker, we had a special Ethernet board with all those state machines to capture and filter the traffic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was there a relationship between choosing TCP/IP and making that decision and repackaging NutCracker? Or?
No, NutCracker was for straightforward tactical decision to convert the inventory into cash. We had $1 million worth of inventory that we had bought year before, to sell lots of NutCrackers, and a lot of cash was tied up there. And yes, for a small company, there was sort of a lot of money tied up, and either I abandon it or spend a huge amount of effort to make the NutCracker business. We didn't have enough funding to do NutCracker and the Ethernet boards and the network. There was just too much on our plate. So I was trying to reduce the stuff on our plate, and by making a decision on TCP/IP, PC, batch VMS, I simplified that problem by about 80, 90%. Because earlier we were doing large number of buses, large number of OSs, large number of protons. The matrix was becoming sort of exponential.
Right, and I'm just trying to understand, Kanwal, from a revenue mix, like let's say between 82 or 83 or whatever those the pertinent years are to like 1990 or whatever. What was the revenue mix between NutCracker and like percentage-wise or roughly ballpark?
So we did roughly about 5 million of revenue in 1984.
Okay.
And we lost roughly about $2.5 million of net losses that year.
$2.5 million of what? Sorry.
Losses. We burned $2.5 million worth of cash. So we spent $7.5 million to produce $5 million worth of revenue.
Okay, and this was predominantly from the hardware.
Yeah, mostly hardware. Yeah, Jim might remember a little bit more, but it was mostly multi-bus boards, hardware. Right, Jim?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back what the revenue mix was. I had talked to last night about the some of the earlier decisions, like I think it was John Dugary's choice that said the original pricing that was proposed at the board for the NutCracker was, I think, $19,000. And he said, well, we're never going to be able to support it at that. Make it 50, and we can always lower it later.
There were workstations being done for other things, for ED and all that. They were priced at $50,000 up.
Yeah, but in total, Kanwal, the venture capital that came in was $7 million in 3 rounds. But we had $2 million of that left at the IPO, so we only spent $5 of capital.
I was not come to that in a minute.
Yeah,
we had raised 7 million, and last round was raised in sort of summer of 84, and that was $3 million round. We had $2 million round in 82, $2 million round at the end of 83, and $3 million round in the middle of 84. After $3 million we raised, we spent about $1 million in buying inventory for NutCrackers. And so we had $2 million cash that we burnt till about March of 85. And if my memory is pretty accurate of that, we had roughly about $800,000 in the bank the day I became sort of interim CEO.
Right.
So sorry.
That was March of 85.
So more money came in after that because we had almost $2 million on the balance sheet when we went public.
No, that's partly because we sold $1 million worth of NutCrackers.
Yeah, got the NutCracker inventory.
And then we started to sell the Ethernet boards for the VMS at $15,000 a piece.
Correct.
Why was NutCracker so cost consuming? Like you said, $2 million.
So first of all, it was a system they were proud of buying a box from somebody. We had a huge amount of design work. There was a specialized board, very low volume board built for that one. I think our cost for NutCracker was roughly about maybe $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 per unit.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe even more, if I remember right. And it was priced at $50,000. If we could sell at $50,000, maybe we sold half a dozen of them at that price. In 1984, I had 40 units worth of inventory
of NutCracker.
Which was
that's
roughly
$500,000 or whatever spent.
$500,000 in cash. But I said, if I can sell them at $25,000, I get $1 million in cash in my hand.
And at this point, it was sunk money because it was just in inventory and it wasn't moving.
Yeah, it wasn't moving. It was So
what led to the decision? What led to making 40 inventory? Just was there a forecast or?
I don't want to. There was a little over ambitious planning in '84 by our former CEO. Yeah. By the way, I should also blame our VC board members because they were more in love with the NutCracker than with networking, because NutCracker was seen as a hot box, $50,000 if you can sell. So there was more bias towards that one. And Inder was overselling and board was buying, and here VP of engineering was saying, "Oh, this doesn't make sense." So when I made a decision, I didn't consult the board at all. I didn't consult board for any of the decisions.
So John, I have a question for you as the investor. When you saw this inventory and everything and Kanwal making the decision, what was your thoughts and what was the board's thinking from your perspective?
I can tell you my thought. Thank God he did it. Basically saved the company because you got rid of some dead inventory and you turned it into cash, which you could put into development. So it was as simple as that.
I can add.
Inder presented very well. He did not execute, unfortunately. And Kanwal, as you can see, just from this conversation, is very dynamic and very strong. And generally in a startup, that's just exactly what you need.
It was a matter of survival. Simply trying to survive. I'll tell you, so when I became the CEO, I had a mission from God and I wasn't going to listen to anybody. I needed to find a way to survive and make it happen. And Dwayne was one of my confidants. Jim was my other confidant at that time. And we would sit down and have a beer and talk, can we make it? Can we, and then I had these wolves, who are going to bring us down soon. And so there was a race. I wasn't going to listen to anybody. If you came into my office and told me that I should be doing something, first thing I did was you're fired, and I fired 2 people like that. Linda Stewart, remember that one? She came and said, "I am being crazy." I said, "What?" I brought her to Tim Harris's office. She's fired. Brought her out right away. And there was another person, he said he's feeling a little bit burnt out. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but don't take a rest." I don't have. So I was not listening to anybody. I had a mission from God to save the company, save myself, save the thing for everybody.
When you laid off a third of the company, Kanwal, how did you plan that, and over what time frame did you make that layoff?
The layoff happened instantaneously within a week after I took over. That was simple calculation. If I don't lay off, I die in 6 months. If I lay off, I die in 9 months.
Yeah.
It was, and it was painful because we were not overly staffed. It was painful, but again, like I said, Jim turned on the way, and there was another person. The 4 of us will sit down and do some math. Jim was my right arm because he will go build the models. What's going to happen, right? So we were I didn't want to fight math, right? So to tell you the truth, my confidence that we will make it was less than 50% when I took over as CEO, because I went and talked to the board members and they said no more money for you guys. So I had to have some plan with some chance of success. And so converting inventory to cash looked like a pretty easy decision to do, right? I don't want to put much effort in there. I have put this extra person on that to fix the product up, and converting to end user business was a necessity because we had 30 or so OEMs and they were not buying any stuff from us. So if I'm going to make sales, so it was sort of, the hand was being forced to some extent, but I was executing very forcefully.
So was this part of you had 800K cash left. This was the 9-month survival from 800K cash?
Yeah, but we got some help from inventory conversion also. So even though that wasn't cash, that turned into cash.
Right.
Yeah, I think this, as you summarized a couple of things that were, I think, really important. Is the umbrella view here was that we weren't going to make it at the way we were going. We had to reduce the head count because it was the #1 expense. And the way to do that was we were spread too thin between the NutCracker and the multiple protocols, multiple buses, multiple operating systems, and said we have to narrow that down to like the 3 or 4 most likely to be successful, get rid of NutCracker, turn the inventory to cash, focus only on a couple of Unix version, a couple of the VAX versions, and then the PC, and make that work, because and only Ethernet, because otherwise we didn't have enough money. And then that made the ability to say a third of the people, or with 1/3 less, we can focus on those 3 key things and drop doing, just shoot the monkeys, all the rest of them that were consuming cash but weren't returning sales.
What drove the decision to focus on which version of Unix to support? Was it customer? Was it hypothesis?
So at that time, there was System 3. System 5 was not out yet, and there was a I think Jazz probably the best judge on that one. Remember, Jazz? There was a System 3 we were going to do for NCR and Siemens. But who else? There were 1 or 2 versions.
I would say the Berkeley 4.2.
4.1 already had a built-in TCP/IP.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we got the TCP/IP from, right?
Yeah. So we're working mainly with things that were based on the Bell Labs.
System 7. There was System 7.
OEMs. System 7 was the first really popular one.
Okay, so this was OEM driven basically at the time.
Yeah, it was OEM driven. We had 3 or 4 OEMs, and we were going to support it. Because the Unix business was not by and large end user business.
So at what point then did you and Jim sit down to say, okay, we're also going to abandon the OEM,
the OEM business, we never quite abandoned. We were not going to do anything extra for them. We were not going to sell more OEMs. We never abandoned because we had OEMs who were buying hardware from us, right? NCR. So the NCR was a big hardware buyer, which saved our life. Because a couple of months in a row, they gave us big orders.
They were also designing us out.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone was designing us out at the same time. So the OEM business was going away on its own.
The OEM's business by and large I discovered was is an interim measure on the part of system guys. They don't want they want to have the checklist item that I had the product, but they have no long-term plan to keep you. If they succeed, they want to reduce cost.
So can you talk about the switch, not switch, but the evolution to end customer?
So end customer was, so we had a VMS board. We had a micro VMS board. We had the board for
what's VMS? What's VMS?
They are digital, I'm sorry, VATS board. Digital, it was a virtual microsystems, right? Digital operating system. Digital operating system for batches. We had board for batches. We had a board for micro batches. Which is the same board really. And we had a multi-bus board. We had a PC board, right? So you don't sell VM stuff to the OEMs. That means you have to sell to digital, and digital had their own Ethernet boards, right? Digital had their own Ethernet board. So we have to sell that to the digital users, right? So digital was also selling .NET software bundled with their boards. And we said we'll bundle TCP/IP with our board and offer equivalent networking using TCP/IP. So that decision was, and of course, PC business was always going to be end user business anyway.
And end user here is educational institutions, government. It's people who wanted to tie Berkeley 4.2 machines to Max machines.
So that's where we done the help. Eventually, Berkeley 4. Berkeley Unix was out there, and people were using those machines, and we were able to tie PCs and your batches into that network.
Right. So at this point, software was $60 per node.
So this is where the real stuff happens, right? So the software was priced at $60 per copy by predecessor. So when I took over, and I looked at, I have 3 hardware engineers and I have 12 software people. And all the revenue is coming from hardware, and there's almost no revenue coming from software because $60 a copy was not much software. So I asked our VP of sales and VP of marketing, how many boards do you think we'll sell this year in 1985? He said 10,000 boards. 10,000 boards, $60 a board, $100,000 of software revenue. Not worth, I have 12 engineers to pay. I say, how many boards will sell if you have a blowout year? Maybe 20,000 boards. And then not enough money. I said, we don't raise the prices tenfold. Out of blue, I said, raise the prices tenfold. Everybody around the table looked at me and said, crazy man. As a matter of fact, my VP of sales got on the phone and talked to the board members and said, I'm crazy. I'm a crazy engineer who thinks he's a CEO. But I forced that tenfold price increase overnight.
So John and Jim, when you heard like this decision to raise tenfold, what was happening in the conversations you were part of?
Well, there was a lot of discussion of, are we crazy? Is it price inelastic market? At that time, software was, I think you and I talked about this in the early 80s, software was a giveaway item and the hardware was all the value was perceived, but the world was changing to realize that it was the software that had the value. And so that was sort of leading that real market trend of saying the hardware's not useful without the software on top of it. And so it was a risk or a bet, but it kind of uses the word survival of saying, if we don't change this pricing model and make it stick, we're not going to have enough money to fund the rest of the work.
It didn't make business sense to sell software, but I have 15 engineers, then I have QA, and I have service and support. It wasn't going to pay for the development, let alone anything else, right? And we had a very poor quality product and very poor service and support. Poor George was supporting the whole damn customer base, just one person, if I remember right. So there was the issue of we are doing a very poor job of software selling it cheap. And I kept saying, hey, if it's worth doing, if customer needs it, you need to pay us to do it right. So we raised the prices tenfold, and then that solved the PC problem. But I looked at the matches. Now I have this issue on matches. Can I support the match end users? These are guys who are spending $500,000 on the computers. Can I support them? Their expectations are much higher. And then I looked around and said, what does digital charge for their .NET solution? And I looked at the price list, and they were charging $29,995 for .NET and the hardware. And I said, oh, we are offering equivalent functionality using TCP IP, but I don't have a .NET name. Maybe I'll charge half the price. So I priced them at $14,995. And again, everybody thought I was crazy. Because we are selling the boards at $2,000 before, and we were selling software at $60 before, and all of a sudden I am pricing the whole thing at $14,995. But that turned out to be the saving grace for everything we did, because Jim and I looked at each other. We don't need to sell too many boards to survive here, do we? and that price stuck. We offered free. I said, 100% guarantee stuff will work. If it doesn't work, we'll fly out a person to make it install and make it work for you. We offered everything. You can imagine, risk-free, total risk-free. Buy from us. And
So welcome, Professor LeBlanc, Greg. So this we should take this opportunity, Greg, because you have the academic, what we're looking for academically in some of these case studies. So please do insert like what you think we should have, because I'm basically regurgitating the story in the timeline.
Yeah. So remember, whenever we're doing a case study write-up, we always want to make sure that the folks who are reading it, they have to put themselves in the position of the decision makers. And so they have to, you can't let them know how the story turns out initially. You have to kind of make them really dig into like, well, we have the benefit of hindsight when we look back and we say, oh, well, that was an obvious choice. But I think as a Kanwal, I love how he described it, because it's like, well, it wasn't an obvious choice, right? There were all these other things that were at play, and there were all these different options. And so those are the things that you have to flesh out in the case write-up, because you want to be able to say, now, what would you do, right? And then, the other thing to keep in mind in a case write-up is that you also need to like insert a whole bunch of irrelevant stuff, like stuff that would, distract people. Like when you're finishing it, when you're solving a maze from the end to the beginning, it's a lot easier than when you're solving a maze from the beginning to the end. And so, trying to recapture the struggles, the confusion, the dead ends, right? You want to make sure you capture that and talk about that. And you know, it means that you have to dig deep into the memory, because a lot of times we just, you know, we whitewash them.
I haven't told you the punchline yet.
Yeah.
So we are an OEM drive. We have a couple of OEM sales guys selling the stuff to the OEMs. They will call on the OEM, Now we want to sell to the end users. End user back then was being sold by a field sales force. You had a sales force in the field, which will do the local seminars, local things, and sell to the end users. I had no time and no money to build the end user sales force. And so I and Dwayne sat down one day and we said, how do we sell this stuff? And I said, Dwayne, don't sit in the sales. Dwayne was an engineer, hardware engineer. There are lots of leads are coming in, but nobody's buying from us. And so Dwayne sat down next to our incoming sales funnel. Where the transfer coming. There was a person there, and she would say, "Hello, Excelan. Do you have TCP IP? Yes. Do you have this? I don't know. All of a sudden, the guy would slam. And Dwayne came and said, "Hey, we can't have that in front." And so I told Dwayne, "You are the guy. Starting tomorrow, you are the technical marketing guy for me, and make the front of this funnel very smooth." So Dwayne did what engineers do. He made a flowchart. Charles comes in. Here's what you do. Very quickly made the report, and Dwayne and another engineer sat next to. Very quickly, instead of saying, "I don't know," hand it to me. Hand it to this person. And
like an implementation, like a README flowchart.
It was flowchart where Dwayne will have, if they ask you this, answer this. If they don't know, hand it to me, hand it to that. And that flowchart that Dwayne built, I'm trying to remember, Susan was her name? Susan, who was our sales person on the front?
I think we had Denise, didn't we?
Yeah. She used to be receptionist. She became the sales front end. I'm trying to remember.
Linda.
Yeah. So the night is
long ago.
That process turned the front of the sales very efficient, very pretty.
Right. So sorry to bounce, but because I know John has to drop in 20 minutes. So I want to make sure we also just utilize some of John's presence.
Okay.
But one of the things I think, Greg, could be interesting is the cultural dynamics of the Silicon Valley, funding someone that was from a non-Caucasian background, an engineer. And so maybe just capturing
maybe
some of the useless facts, like you said, Greg, just capturing that environment could be also part of this case study. And so maybe, John, if you can just take yourself back to when you met Kanwal, what was the investment environment like? Who were the typical CEO founders? And then, what led you to investing in Kanwal? What were those terms, et cetera? And then Kanwal, what was your experience in fundraising as well? Please. And Jim too, if you have any insights. Yeah.
Well, this is, let me give you a little history of our firm. The three of us started a venture capital firm in 1981, Dugarry, Jones, and Wilder, obvious names. We had worked together at Citicorp Venture Capital in San Francisco together, myself starting in 1973 after a successful entrepreneurial endeavor. And so I brought the two younger guys along with me because at the time, ERISA laws changed in the late 70s to allow institutions such as pension funds to invest in private equity, such as venture capital. And there was a large pool of capital available, but very few experienced VCs. So a number of people that worked at Citicorp Venture Capital who had developed a successful track record in venture investing left, and we were the latest that left in 1981, raised our modest venture capital fund, but we thought it was fantastic at the time of whole $28 million. Our target had been 25. And so in 1982, we started investing in Excelan. It was one of the first investments we made. We had obviously a lot of experience investing in venture capital over the prior 7-8 years. And also I had been an entrepreneur in a company called Diablo System as the CFO from its startup in the late 60s, which we sold to Xerox. So, you know, I'd seen a lot of people. And frankly, one of the bases that I learned very early on in that process, you didn't care what color, what religion, what size, what shape an individual was, an entrepreneur was, you wanted someone that was going to make you some money, because that's what your investors expected, and we were paid accordingly. And so I was fairly colorblind, and I was looking for successful people, a successful team. And at the time we met the team at Excelan, they were in a strip mall, as I recall, over in the Fremont area. You remember that, Kanwal?
Yeah.
And I think it used to be a real estate brokerage office.
Yeah, Cherry store on one side and a 7-Eleven on the other side.
Exactly. So you all can imagine it. They're all over today. And here were these guys basically in some open space with some workbenches and the various equipment to do that, and a few desks. And that impressed me, frankly, because I can remember those days at Diablo Systems where we had a very similar setup. And so I related to it immediately. Inder Singh, who was the leader at the time, was quite an impressive fellow. And the other guys seemed like a very appropriate supporting cast to his leadership. And we liked the area of networking and communications. And so it was a fairly easy decision for us that to place a bet on this team. And at the time, I never thought twice about their color, their religion. It was more their capabilities and ability to execute and work together. I have to tell you, though, a funny story. At the time, it wasn't so funny, but I look back and laugh at this point. I knew I had worked for Price Waterhouse for 5 years prior to my entrepreneurial experience. And I had met an executive recruiter who was a big-time executive recruiter, headhunter. And I kept in touch with him just as part of my network. And I talked with him roughly 6 to 9 months after making this investment and described it and told him about the individuals. And he said, "You invested in Indians?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "I wouldn't trust them to walk across, help me across the street." I said, "Really?" You know, that wasn't even in my mind. But I took that to mean that there was a significant bias, at least with that guy and potentially with others against Indians. And frankly, I was right. Bet on the guys, bet on the people. Don't worry about what they look like. And I guess Kanwal and the rest of the team give a sense of that. Just to tell you in full disclosure, I'm very actively engaged with Kanwal. My son is his partner in a venture firm, Inventus, and has been, I guess, for over 15 years now, Kanwal. I think I'm right. And they've been quite successful. And it's been a great relationship going back now 40 years.
Yeah. So let me add you a couple of perspectives myself. We had talked to over 100 VCs. And the standard response is, yeah, looked like a damn good plan. Yeah, looked like a nice market, but you don't have a business person in your team. Yeah, that would be a pretty standard answer. Yeah, and after a while, you know, a business person means a white man, right? Because the Indians were not known to be either sales, marketing, finance, general managers. They were engineers by and large, in the valley. So I'm not sure it's 100% biased, but Indians were not seen as a general managerial material, at that time. And so by the time we met with John, we had the product ready. We had a customer, with 3 computer systems, where we had done specialized contract designed for them, their machine. So we had sort of revenue, $100,000 for the revenue because he paid us the NRE money. So there was a little bit of a proof that stuff works. These guys did sell to one customer, and it was a pretty hot area. Networking was emerging to be a very hot area in 1982. So John was able to see beyond the Indians and was willing to write the check, but a lot of people were not at that time.
It's interesting these days, especially with all of the focus on, the differences of color and religion and race and such, how neutral people were at the time then. I remember, I don't know, maybe it was self-selecting that anyone who joined Excelan said, I don't care if people are purple and from the moon, let's go get this job done and work together. But there was never any sense of that, I don't think, within the company. Somebody made a joke about it. I thought I was going to attribute it to John, but I'm not sure. Well, I won't attribute it to him. Maybe it was Kanwal that said, well, the only thing about coming to work at Excelan is all the Indians are chiefs and all the chiefs are Indians.
That was me. Yeah.
So, I mean, but nobody there, that was just a non-starter issue, that people just said, this is an interesting space with interesting technology and let's go make it happen together.
So when I was looking for the first engineer to come and help us, the person I thought was Dwayne. Dwayne had worked with me at Lynch, senior Lynch, for several years. And I said, if anybody can help me, I get Dwayne. So I picked up the phone, I called Dwayne, hey, I'm doing a startup. And before he even says what, when, where, when can I join you? It was his answer. I mean, he didn't even care whether we were going to do it. So Dwayne, immediately said, yes, I'm in, didn't ask for salary, didn't ask for anything. So Dwayne was there as a part of the original team, and he and I had that kind of a relationship because he had worked for me when he was first coming out of San Jose State, as a student back in 1974, 75, Dwayne?
Sounds right.
Yeah. So he and I had worked together. So I don't think the company had any Indianness about it, internally. But
I'm going to tell one funny story because of yes, there was a lot of Indianness because there were, I think, for the first 50 people in the company, that was a preponderance of Indians relative to any other nationalities. But I remember what I learned quickly was how different the Indians were. I remember it rained and there was an invasion of ants, and Kanwals running around with the can of Raid killing the ants, while Naveen, who's a Jain who believes in the preservation of all life forms because you come back and live as a different kind of a creature, and he's chasing them around with cardboard to take them outside while Kanwal's spraying them with Raid, and they're yelling at each other, right? He goes, that might be my grandmother you're spraying, So there were even differences among the various factions of Indians.
So I'll tell you, the funding was difficult, but happened, and Inder was a very impressive person. Inder spoke English very, very well. He was if you look back at his background, his background was royalty in India, like Maharajas, he was not quite Maharaja, but he came from a Zamindar family. Sumit, you will know that, right? And so he went to top schools. He was very polished. He wasn't a rustic person like me. He was a Yale PhD also. So Inder was a very impressive person. Like John said, he could tell a very good story. But in any case, what happened when we were converting to the end user business, there was this lot of learning. We pioneered selling on the phone. We pioneered selling against the ad. We pioneered buying a database system and building a personal database system to track leads. All that happened within that 3, 4, 5 months that we had, and we had to get efficient at selling online. The pricing did help a lot because the margins were very good. So we were able to do things and take risks as a result.
Who's managing? So picking up the phone and calling folks, and because trying to find the right person to talk to for such a complex topic, who was managing this whole system within Excelan, and how were you sourcing all these numbers?
So it was strictly advertising. I have 2 types of ads running. those image building ads that you would think somebody would have this solution available to you. And then I had this black and white ads, which were saying TCP/IP for VATS, VMS 49.95, call this number. And so there was this cheap ads running all over the newspapers. And I was spending $50,000 to $75,000 a month, and this fancy ads running top. Hey, somebody needs to solve this problem of connecting your PCs to your Unix machine to your VATS machine, right? And that ad campaign was very effective, was producing leads, and the leads were falling by the wayside when they came in, until Dwayne sat down there and Dwayne built the flow chart, and then Dwayne and 2 other people were set up to receive the incoming call. So they will very quickly qualify, sell, node to node sale of match features that you need, features we have, type of thing. So the sale process became very effective once Dwayne engaged as a technical marketing guy, in sales. And it ran fairly smoothly after that one. Once we figured that one out on the front end, we were selling 100 batch boards a month at the peak.
Can I get back to John's? Can I just say something? Ask John a question. So you said it was an easy decision to invest with these guys, but good investments are always ones that are unpopular, because if everyone thinks it's a good idea, then there's no way you can make any money. So it had to be the case that, as Kanwal said, most VCs were staying away. So if most VCs were staying away and it looked like an obvious choice to you, why was it not obvious to everybody else? What were the other VCs missing? What was the conventional wisdom that would deter them from placing a bet with Excelan?
Well, let me set the background of the times. This was 1982. We were in rampant inflation, if you recall. It's nothing like it is today. We're concerned about 5% inflation. That was double-digit inflation. As a result, there was a lot of reluctance to do early stage or startup deals, which is what this would fall into. There were plenty of expansion financings to be done. So the bar was pretty high to be able to do this area. Even though communications was hot, everybody's looking for the next IPO rather than the next startup. So you got to have that mindset. Today, Kanwal is doing deals at valuations that are probably 4 or 5 times the valuation for the same type of deal that was done in 1982 with regard to Excelan, just to give you a sense of the difference in perspective. At the time, this company, you'd be selling half the company for a couple $1 million. Now you're lucky to get 25%.
Yeah, that was over $2 million for half the company.
That's right. And so set that stage. It's a different time. And even though there was a considerable more money coming in than, say, in the late 70s because of this terrible inflationary cycle and the stock market was down, there was still a lot less tolerance for risk. Yeah. And so while it was easy from a judgment point of view that these guys could be successful, they had the benefit that we were a new fund. We were chartered to do early stage primarily, and this fit and in this technology area that Kanwal and his team were endeavoring to exploit. And so in that sense, it was easy. But for the industry in general, not the case.
Yeah,
so it's all a matter of what time and what situation you're in. Our co-investors at that round were Bay Partners, which was a fund that was formed at the similar time to ourselves, and one of their limited partners, a very wealthy family, co-invested with us. I believe those were the three, if my memory serves me right, Kanwal.
So let me give you a little bit more color. So when I was thinking of doing the Excelan, I talked to my manager at Lynch, and his wife worked for this law firm in Palo Alto. And so using her, I set up a meeting with the attorney in Palo Alto at Ware, Fletcher and Friedenrich. John Friedenrich was the attorney. I set up a meeting. I go there, I talked to him about the plan. I'm talking to John already. So John Friedenrich liked what we were doing. He says, I love what you guys are doing. Maybe I'll refer you to this VC firm, And the next day we show up at the VC firm, and John Friedenrich is a partner at that VC firm. So he was both attorney at Fletcher and Friedenrich, and he was also a partner at Bay Partners, along with John Marsh and John, Friedenrich. They had third partner too.
Chuck Hazel.
Chuck Hazel. So John, that meeting with John Friedenrich at the law firm turned out to be pretty interesting meeting, because not only he referred us to Bay Partner, but he was a partner there, but he also put $25,000 of his own money into us right away, as a investment to keep us growing, while we are getting the money. So there was a little bit of luck, because my boss's wife worked for John Friedenrich at that law firm when I was at Lynch. And he was at Bay Partners, and we were independently talking to John, and I think they collected, I think through our efforts, because we both sides were talking to us. But
interesting, you had to talk to your manager to get that intro,
So I told him I'm going to do a star. So there's a little bit of history there too. I don't think John, anybody here knows that story. I was feeling pretty much burnt out as an engineer, and I was saying I am in my late 30s, I'm going to be lifer here unless I made a move. And my boss's boss, they were all into Amway selling stuff, and I had to look forward to becoming an Amway dealer, and I thought that scared me, so I was trying to leave. But then I saw this company called Altos Computer start, and Altos founder was somebody who had worked for me at Senior Lynch. And also I said, this guy used to be an engineer under me here, and he went and did his own startup. Why can't I do it? And so I had made up a decision to don't do it. So my boss knew that I was not going to do it. So I was telling him that I'm not doing it. He said, you should talk to this attorney. So he sort of recommended that I should do it. But I was going to leave anyway, so the Altos founder was my motivation. He worked for me. He was an immigrant from England. He went to start his own company. Why can't I do it? And that was starting point. And John much later told me, this is like 15 years later, that John's dad was an immigrant, Irish immigrant, and he saw his dad struggle, to get settled and all that. So he was a little bit soft on immigrants as a result of that. I don't know if John, you remember that.
No, I do. No, I believe that first generation or even immigrants are particularly the process to getting into the country. The education was the key for many Indians, Chinese, others, and they appreciated what they had here and were highly motivated to win. They believed in the American dream, and I think they still do today. So that's why it was relatively easy for me. kind of long-winded, but I have to say this is nearly 40 years, and I'm still close with Kanwal. These are enduring relationships.
And go ahead, Greg. I was going to ask a question.
Well, the other thing is like the nature of the relationship between venture capitalists and founders has changed quite a bit, right? So now people talk about, founder friendly, venture capitalists, as opposed to the belief that back in those days, the venture capitalists were not nearly as founder friendly, right? So the idea was that, today, by the time you get in as a venture capitalist, the founders already kind of demonstrated their success to some degree, and so you can be more founder friendly. But back then, you had to get involved and provide funding really before there was any evidence of success. Kanwal didn't have 1 million users on the App Store, when you showed up with your money. So what was it like back in those days, the relationship between the VCs and the founders? How much involvement did you have with the founding team? Did you write a check and walk away, or did you how much input did you provide to the scaling process?
Well, let me put this in. My background is not as a technologist, number one. And so I've been very deferential to the technologist and the directions that they're desiring to go. The normal process back in the day, and I think it's very similar today, is say 2 or 3 venture capitalists put together $2 to $5 million today, and probably two of them will take a board seat, and maybe the founders will have 2, and then an independent one will join. In our particular instance, I believe it was John Bosch, myself, and Inder Singh at the time. However, most board meetings, which were monthly and continue to be monthly for years, and they were face-to-face meetings, not Zooms. So you walked into the business, and you can see what's going on rather than just over a screen. So you get a pretty good sense of the people and the style and the culture on a monthly basis. With regard to advice, it's primarily, from my point of view, primarily financial. The technical, as I said, is primarily to the operating people. And generally we have the operating people as part of the board meeting. And so it's a 2 to 4 hour type of meeting on a regular basis, generally monthly. And so you have the ability to put input in, but it also provides a discipline for the operating people to be able to present their thoughts and dreams and risks and rewards of the decisions they're making, so we can act as a sounding board. I think it's pretty much the same today, isn't it, Kanwal?
Yeah. So John Dury was a financial guy. John Bosch was more of sales guy. So he would focus on selling. And so the technology decisions were made by us, by and large. Yeah, and that's true even now. Even this day and age, technology decisions are made by founders. But what happened there? The Inder was our main, face on the board, and it turned out Inder wasn't quite straight. What he was telling the board wasn't quite what we were talking inside the company at times. So when he will come down and tell me this is what board has decided, was Inder's decisions, and I was nowhere to verify and fight because the board was giving the advice and the money, and so he sort of was doing what he wanted to do more than what we had agreed to do. Yeah, and that's how we got into NutCracker. That's how we got into things that weren't part of the plan at all. And so once I started to talk more directly to John, we discovered very quickly that Inder was playing the same game both ways. Team wants to do this thing. He will tell the board, and he will tell me the board wants to do this thing. And so once we discovered that, that was pretty quickly the end of Inder at the company, because he had no place to hide. And you need to have a team that trusts everybody, right? And we say, why would board decide that? That doesn't make sense, type of thing, right? But I wasn't experienced, and didn't know what to do. But I'll tell you, when I took over, by that time the game was over, and I wasn't going to let anybody, board or no board or anybody, tell me what to do, because I was in the survival mode. I said, if they fire me, this company don't go under anyway. So I had 3 to 6 months to get hold of turn this place around, and I was there to do whatever it took to make that happen.
Was an IPO a milestone that, like, John, you were looking for, not looking for, but like that VCs were targeting, or was what was the milestones from a financial perspective, I guess?
Well, yeah, as with any investment, you're looking for, to make an investment, you want to be in an area that has the ability to have 2 outcomes. One, the company can be merged because it's in a market area that another company will see as worthwhile, or an IPO. At the time we made the investments, there weren't any IPOs. Literally, there were no IPOs. Once again, the market sentiment at the time was not there. Now it changed a few years later, much to our pleasure, so one of our other earlier investments was able to go public quite quickly, and we look like geniuses. But that's not genius; it's just serendipity. That's the way the market goes. It's up and down, and I've heard the story told by, I think it was Tom Perkins, the best time to start a company is in a recession, because that's when you can you'll find the best people. You'll also find the best pricing, and you can look back at your expectation for liquidity is 5 to 7 years for these deals. It's turned out even now it's even later. But that's another story. But at the time, that was the story. And so you expected to have liquidity at that point, and the world can change in 5 to 7 years with regard to markets. And so my expectation was we saw the ability for 2 outcomes. Probably, most importantly, was that we could probably sell this company for a lot more than what we had invested. And I think that's a similar mentality even today.
Yeah. By the way, thought of IPO, a potential IPO, didn't happen till December of '85. By December of '85, we were starting to do almost $2 million a month, and we were almost producing 10% net cash positive profits. And I said, oh my God, this time we could drop public. Yeah, that's a different story. We can talk about that, but we need to get a new CEO here, because Indians are not CEOs, right? so as far as the company became profitable and started to look very good, we need to get a new CEO was the mantra. And
but Kanwal, you were pretty much primary on the road shows, I assume, right? When you were like talking to the Wall Street guys and.
Well, so the notion of an Indian CEO on a Wall Street would have been unthinkable, right? So I was fired not because I was doing poorly. I was fired because I was doing too well and company needed to go public. And I was told by John Bosch. So let me understand. You want to be a CEO or you want to get rich?
Well, as my recollection is correct, it says yes, but the board and the company brought in we'll call it a face person for the Go Public CEO. He added almost no value other than that face, and only was there for about a year and a half. Yeah, right.
So there was this notion of a general manager from HP as a potential CEO. They were they looked like CEOs from Central Casting, tall, white, imposing figures, but they were not very good general managers. HP had all these general managers who had no sense of financials. They had no sensitivity to numbers, because somebody else was managing the numbers for them. So we had Dick Moore hired as a CEO, and very quickly discovered that he was not a scrappy a guy who needs to he was into values. He gave us this plaque. I still have this plaque here someplace. With values, right? I have it someplace here in my office. It's someplace here. Our goal is to be nice company. Our goal is to be nice towards our people, nice towards our customer. It had nothing to do with the business we are. John, you remember that one, right, Jim?
Vaguely. So, that was a mistake, but on the bottom line, we got the company public, and
I have no regrets whatsoever.
He departed, as you said, fairly quickly, and Kanwal took the reins and did a great job, and then ultimately someone walked in. We just to kind of summarize our involvement, because I have to leave here, unfortunately. I'm enjoying this immensely. It's kind of the good old days and reflections. On our investment, we made 10 times when we distributed the Excelan stock to our limited partners. And then if you were smart enough or lucky enough, if you kept those shares, and the company was merged into Novell, we did 10 times that.
Yeah, we did a year after the merger.
So that's, the arithmetic, 10 times 10. I think most of us can do that. That's 100 times. And I was one of the fortunate ones that listened to Kanwal and said, hold on. And we kept in touch while he was at Novell. And when it got up to 30 something, as I recall, Kanwal said, gee, that's a pretty good price. And I said goodbye to the stock, that is. So it was a great enduring relationship that was very profitable as well. And with that, I'm going to have to depart. I'm here in Hawaii, and my wife has been very patient, and we have to go. But it's good talking with you all, and let's keep in touch.
Good to see you, John. Aloha.
Aloha.
Great to meet you.
Thanks, John. So Greg, I'm assuming that we're going to make this a general management kind of case, right?
Well, the thing about cases, they can fulfill a bunch of different verticals. So I think one would be the general management. One would be, I think, the VC angle, right? Like, why take a bet on these folks? The marketing perspective is another really insightful one, right? Where hardware plus software, the pricing decision, I think, is one of the key decisions. And then the channels, right? So a lot of the marketing stuff, particularly that there's no marketers here, and there's no salespeople on the team. So you've got a bunch of people with no background in marketing or sales having to figure out how to market and sell.
Yeah, we had a sales VP, but he was a real hustler. He wasn't the guy you could talk to about anything, right? He would send flowers to a secretary of the potential buyer. That was his approach. It wasn't one of those consultative sales that you need to do the thing. But let me tell you one thing about John, right? John turned out to be a very good guy. John and I ended up having a fight. So when Inder was lying to board, and Inder was lying to us as a team member, we both felt aggrieved, that, we didn't know. So John said, you all Indians are liars, and he told me also the names. I got really pissed, and I told John, you should talk about Inder, not all Indians. So he had almost a little bit of a fist fight. We both cooled down, and then we both realized that we both had been had. Inder was telling me, that this is what board wants, and he was telling board, this is what the team wants. But once that thing was out, John and I had best of the relations. It's been 35, 36 years, best of the relationship, because, and I have never felt anything from John, anything other than, very good friendship, and he sent his son to work for us, and he told his son to do a bit of my partner, who chased me for a year before we became partners. So it was a very good setup. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like having the open discussion. We know where we stand. I would go to John and get the advice on a personal issues beyond business. And some of the advice he gave me has turned out to be some of the best advice I ever got. So it has been a very good relationship.
And also, Greg and Kanwal, I think Dwayne was VP of marketing, right? So Dwayne
was not a VP. Dwayne was the engineer with me. He went into marketing as a technical marketing guy to help improve the sales. And once I started to realize that a technical company needs a technical guy as a VP of marketing, because it's all about a nerd-to-nerd sales messaging from nerd to nerd. I told Dwayne that he's going to be my VP of marketing. Dwayne was very resistant to that one. Dwayne did not want to be VP of marketing. Dwayne said, I don't know how to market. I don't know how to do this. I don't have white shirts. I don't have a tie. So I told him
about 6 months, but yeah.
I said, go to the flea market and buy some white shirts and some ties. But that turned out to be a good decision, because you need a deep technology products need a deep technology guys, messaging out to the market. So Dwayne was promoted to marketing VP by me in mid to late 85, maybe even later.
It was a little bit later.
So can you talk about, Kanwal and Dwayne, the marketing assets? I'm very curious. So you had mentioned there was a process workflow for someone on the phone, contact Dwayne of this, of that. But what were the other, I guess, artifacts and assets? There was print, advertising.
I think George Powers is gone, huh? Okay.
George is...
He's dropped.
He dropped. So George Powers...
He's on the line. He's on the line. His just video is off, so I'm not sure if he's present or not. Yeah.
So George Power was our ears to the market. George Power was the customer support guy. Post-sale customer service support guy. So he would know how the customers are feeling, about the product, what are the issues.
Explain to you how to do
the George was inducted as a part of my inner.
Well, I couldn't find it.
Where was it?
I don't know. Katie came in and did it.
Hey, John, you can drop off the Zoom if you don't mind. Actually, I think you're still on the Zoom. If you can hear us.
Sumit, I think you can drop him if you're the host. You can mute him.
Okay. Let me try.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you're the host, you can mute him.
Oh, yeah, I've just done that. Okay.
Okay.
So George Power became the person who helped us sharpen our messaging, sharpen our product, position. And so he moved from, I tried to get him into marketing, but he resisted. He wanted to do the software, So, but I had this informal group in the back helping me, stay sharp. The other person who didn't join today is Jay Israel. Jay Israel was our deep scientist. We hired him from Xerox PARC. He's an MIT PhD. He was part of the Xerox team, which did the Ethernet and protocols. So Jay had become sort of my pillar to keep me technically on the even team. So So once I started to become confident CEO, I made sure that I was very real about my own capabilities. So I wouldn't make decisions which are
Kanwal, you just mentioned something that it piqued my curiosity. How did you become a confident CEO? What were the tools you used?
Well, so like I said, in early '85, I was in survival mode. I was not sure about financial numbers. I depended upon Jim with a lot of advice. I was certainly saying I need to do this to survive, but I wasn't a confident manager CEO. But mid '85, I was becoming very confident because numbers were happening. Decisions were being made by me, were producing results, visible results quickly.
Right.
And by the end of '85, I was very sure my own decision-making thought process was very sound.
So I remember, you don't mind, Dwayne and Jim, I'd love your observations of.
I'm going to stop in the bathroom for a minute. You guys keep on going, okay?
Okay. So Jim and Dwayne, if you don't mind throwing in your 2 cents on your observation of Kanwal's journey from engineer to CEO, that'd be great too. What your observation.
Sort of laugh and say, he should be back so he can hear these from us. But,
yeah. Should we take a 2-minute break maybe then, or we could do that just while we're waiting for Kanwal?
I'm good.
Okay. But yeah, whenever you want to start, please do that. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, although I probably only have about 15 minutes here before I have to go as well.
So then, Jim, we'll make sure we maximize stories from you and your anecdotes and these kinds of things. That'd be great. Yeah.
Well, 2 things. One, just because you sort of raised it here, and I think Kanwal just said it. He's really a smart guy, and he was also self-reflective in terms of saying, what do I know how to do and what don't I know how to do? But he was really passionate about saying, I want to save this company. I want to save this product. I want to save this business. And as he was making decisions and getting more confident, I think he saw the results of his decisions being successful, and that boosted his confidence. Now, you and I talked about something, and I kind of want to wait for him to get back to say, well, one of those personal introspection things of when he said, if I want to be the more out front person. And Dwayne, do you remember Margaret, the speech therapist that would come and work with him?
Yep.
Kanwal, are you back yet?
I'm back. Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying about as you were building your own confidence and taking on a broader role and recognizing, like, say, I have a slight weakness here in the deep technology. I got to hire Dr. J. Israel to help me out as an advisor. You also were doing that personally. And I would just mention Margaret about saying how improving your own external ability to communicate in the image that was a very humbling experience for you, I think, but a very powerful experience in terms of continuing to grow as an individual.
So Margaret Smith, I think it was her name, like Margaret Price. She was an 85-year-old music and speech teacher, from South. She would teach Southerns to lose their accent and become accent free. And so when I became very aware that I have speech issues, I still do, but I need to talk to the people beyond my immediate group. I have to speak publicly. So Jim, I think Jim's wife's church, she was
I'm trying to remember. I thought she was a Stanford instructor in speach therapy, but I forget how we found her.
It is somebody's wife's church. She was the member, and so they recommended. So I hired Margaret as a speech teacher, and she will come 3-4 days a week. And for a couple of hours during
I still remember the first day she walked in, and we both looked at this woman coming up the stairs with these high brown lace-up combat boots and just a very rugged-looking 80-year-old.
But she was very spontaneous, very stern. She will not give any she will make me say things 20 times, 30 times, 40 times. And she would not so she was very good. She was very good. By the time I was done with her, I had improved quite a bit. And she passed away a couple of years later. But So I had very active self-improvement drive for a while, and it served me very, very well because there was no reason for me to believe that I was a CEO material. Then I said, oh my God, I am a CEO. How do I make sure that I don't make a fool of myself beyond technology part, right?
It's the imposter syndrome. And, I think we were all having imposter syndrome a little bit, but what I remember most is you taking showers, and you'd come in the morning and you go, I have an idea. I took a shower and I had this great idea, and they were all great ideas. That was when you were having all your innovations.
So one of the things that I didn't have a mentor or a role model. So it was sort of everything from first principles, which is very good way for engineers to operate anyway. What are the first principles here, right? And the math was by strong, suite. So I didn't want to fight math ever, and and I also had formed an inner cabinet, of people, out of 40 people, 5, 6 of us, Dwayne was part of it, Jim was part of it, George was part of it, so where we will taught as equal and peers, and then when we step out, we have made a decision, then I knew this team is going to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So
I think you expanded that to about 30 people at one point.
Eventually, we split into two: the product planning group and the market planning group. But initially it was a business plan. For me to make sure there's somebody I can talk to, on an equal basis, somebody who can tell me without fear of being fired that I was around. So there was a lot of self-learning that happened that year. By the time 85 was over, I was very confident individual. I thought that my thought process was very robust. Decision making was very robust. The numbers were reflecting all that, right?
I told last night also the story of the Ed Shea bet. When he says, I don't believe this business plan, I'll bet you each $1,000 that you can't make it. And Inder said, we'll take that bet. None of us had $1,000. And we lost. So he did a double.
Bet because, see, that was the problem with Inder had it overconfidence. He never questioned his own judgment. He never questioned his, and we didn't have the courage to, not bet him, when he took the bet, right? But next year at Shea, put the same bet on double or nothing.
Yep. And
we won that bet next year.
I remember the board meeting where he tore up the checks.
The at Shea turned out to be a very good person to get to know. He was at Shea Homes, which is one of the largest home builders in California. He was a family member who invested in the technology companies. He was a founding investor in Hamilton Quest and all that. And I became very good friends. He took me under his wings. And he came in very, very. He became very good advisor. And came in very handy later. When we had a merger problem with NET. I had invited him to join the board by that time. And at Shea helped me break the merger, that I thought was a bad merger to be happening.
And George has just joined again, so welcome back, folks.
George, this is a more free-flowing discussion. We want to hear your perspective of what happened in '85.
Jeez.
When it went from survival to thrival, what changed?
We were selling a large volume of TCP/IP into the PCs at that point, right? And we had gotten out of the NutCracker business, What I didn't say, I don't think we made that point that at the time we were selling the NutCracker before then, although it was really clunky, both hardware and software, it didn't really have competition that I noticed.
That was it. That was the thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a benefit we enjoyed in a few places, like in the DEC TCP/IP solution, which is very strange considering it came from DEC, but we didn't have competition. And that was beneficial. And let's see, when did we go public? Was that
February, approximately on February 27th, 1987.
1987.
Approximately.
At 9 o'clock in the morning.
We had a nerve-wracking stock market crash in 86.
Oh yeah, yeah. One more story I need to tell you. So we had, by the fall of 85, we are doing well, but we had two companies in our market competing with us. A company of CMC, which was the equivalent board, using 68K. We had an 8186 processor, and a company called Interlac, which had an Ethernet board. They also had a smart Ethernet board, and so three of us would be in competition at a given customer. And CMC, ended up getting taught in sort of lying about their numbers. They would claim huge things, then they will take, later they will claim lower and lower numbers. So we used them very effectively. Hey, look at this. They were telling you 2 million bits transfer rate. Now they're telling you million bit transfer rate. Yeah. So there was less of a worry. But Interlac was a head-on competition with us. They merged with a company called Mitre and disappeared. Just when a competition between them and us was net. They merged and they disappeared, and they didn't surface for another year or so. So I got lucky in the sense that we were left alone in the marketplace, standing with Interlac disappearing because of the merger. CMC sort of had an internal problem. They were lying about numbers and all that. And they sort of.
What about three common Ungerman Bass at the same time?
Yeah, three-man Ungerman Bass were not as head-on competition. Not three-time and Bridge, not Ungerman Bass, Bridge. They merged. Bridge and three-time merged. Right?
Ungerman Bass was also as well, and they got bought by Tandem.
Yeah, and was Bass by Tandem. But I'm saying Ungerman Bass, the Bridge and three-time merged. But the one which really helped us in fall of 85 was Interlac being acquired by Mitre.
And IBM, Microsoft, all those guys were not really in the picture that way.
They were not networking guys. The networking guys was us, Bridge, Communication, Interlac, CMC, Cytec.
I want to come back for a second, because it wasn't that that IBM and DEC weren't in networking. They had internally made what turned out to be very bad strategic decisions. IBM said, we've looked at TCP/IP, it won't work. We've got our own protocol and token ring, and it's going to win. And they did all kinds of things in that effort with assumptions that turned out to be wrong. And DEC had DECnet, which was fine for connecting DEC computers, but they never worried about connecting other things into that with the focus. And so the world went away from both of them because of, even though they were trying to sell things, IBM had a great token ring network if you had IBM machines, and DEC had a great DECnet if you had DEC machines. But suddenly you had all these other things that people wanted to connect.
And what about Intel?
Yeah, the Intel has the same issue. I'll tell you, our position became very clear. Jim brought up that we became the heterogeneous networking people. If you have the Unix machine, if you have the PC, if you have a DEC machine, we are the only game in town. And eventually, we also had a connection into IBM mainframe board with a partnership with somebody, and we acquired a company which was doing Apple networking and brought that into our fold. So we could connect your Apple Macintoshes to PCs, to Unix machines, to the VX. So we became the truly only game in town for heterogeneous networking by the end of '86, if I remember right. When
that sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah, I and Jim and few other guys went to Raleigh to sell to IBM. You see, where TCP/IP had become popular. IBM wanted to buy TCP/IP, and so 3-4 of us showed up, and there were 20 of them in the room. And
we were so unpolished. We were doing hand drawing slides with felt pens in this big IBM room.
Yeah. So one of them said, "So how many engineers do you have?" I said, 15. And they looked at each other and said, "We have 250 of them, but you're networking. You gonna help us?" So we came from that meeting, saying, "Oh, I don't think we made a sale here." Yeah, but by end of '86, we were very confident. We were doing well on almost all fronts. And so here the top of the stories. So there was a company called Quarterdeck, which was making the DOS machines, multitasking machines. Your DOS was a single tasking, single thing, and Quarterdeck had this product. I don't George, you might remember the name of the product. They had this product which will let you set up 4 different windows on a DOS machine and run 4 different applications. And we worked with them to make the networking happen in the back. So you could have 4 different applications running simultaneously, and they're all networked to different machines. One to join to Unix machine, and that taught the eye of Microsoft. And Microsoft called us. See, can we have that functionality? Yeah. And I and Jay Israel went to Redmond. We said, yeah, we can do it. So Microsoft, we spent tons of time with Microsoft. We helped them improve, and that resulted in a lot of stuff. Improvement in Windows 3.0. So I was super confident about not only our business savviness, but also our technology prowess. So I was very sure by the end of '86, early '87, either Microsoft or Novell will acquire us. I thought it was going to be Microsoft because they were so dependent upon us for technology, for networking. But that didn't happen.
Yeah, we had the deal in place. We were working on development of.
Yeah, we had a deal in place, but then they announced with Theta, right?
So we had an abrupt change in our development where we're all full up on OS2 and developing this stuff for Microsoft. And suddenly we had to just pack everything up and send it back to Microsoft and start working on Novell integration.
That sounds like a pretty, that sounds pretty harrowing. That, must have been a bit of a jolt.
Oh, I don't know. I was pretty stoked about it, really.
So Microsoft was so dependent upon us, and we were really feeling good. But what happened? When they made the networking announcement, they shut us out, and they told me privately, said, "No, you are our networking partner, but we can announce that we depend upon you," and that pissed me off. And I said, "Oh, we're not gonna work with you." Novell called me around the same time. And so Novell said, we want to work. We want to acquire you guys. And so I told Microsoft, and Microsoft, no, why don't we acquire you? And by that time I was very sour on Microsoft. So I went with Novell. And Microsoft was so pissed. They sent somebody over to take their stuff back same day. We had to box up all this stuff in one day and make sure there was no Microsoft IP left at Excelan.
I think you had mentioned Steve Ballmer said something to you.
Steve Ballmer told me that it's going to be personal between him and me, and he's going to make my life miserable for the rest of my life. I told Steve Ballmer, I was really scared. Why don't you try it?
Okay.
Steve Ballmer and I became friends later.
Boys and girls, I have to go now. This is fun. We should get together and do this more often. And I'm certainly available to have further conversations as you develop your case. Appreciate what you're doing. It'll be fun for us to maybe be a part of that.
Thank you, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Take care, Jim.
Good to see you, George. Bye, all.
Hey, Greg, so what else do you think we should cover? Because we've kind of talked about pricing, customer segmentation. Kanwal, anything you think is missing, Greg? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I really think you have to dig into like what, how these guys overcame the general skepticism around, this concept of, this new standard, right? And how they basically built that.
That turned out to be easy. That turned out to be very easy. There was a famous saying in the Valley that standards don't make volumes, volumes make standards. And we were achieving volumes. Yeah, so let me tell you a story about GM and Boeing. Boeing and GM were a part of a group called, I can't remember the name of the group, but their job was to make the OSI standards happen. Yeah, if you remember, the whole world went towards OSI, including Intel. And Girat's HNS was going nowhere because Girat's never published the applications.
OSI was a competing protocol to TCP/IP?
Yeah. Okay. So Girat had Ethernet and HNS protocols. HNS protocols, they published up to transport layer, but they never published any applications. Say you do your own applications. And so that turned out to be everybody who implemented HNS couldn't interoperate. Everybody implemented HNS, Underman Bass, Bridge, but they all had their own applications. They couldn't interoperate. So HNS for all practical purposes, even though it was the same transport layer, could not interoperate. OSI was the international standard being developed, with the help of all the big guys, IBM, and all the European guys, including Siemens. And so everybody put their weight behind OSI protocols, everybody, except Excelan. And so Boeing was a big customer, and so was GM for us. And they both are putting pressure on me to commit to OSI. And I kept saying, I only have 15, 20 engineers. I don't have enough. And so both gave me ultimatum. Both of them gave ultimatum. If you don't commit publicly to OSI, we will drop you. And I want to tell this story because I was at Detroit, visited this technology czar at GM, who was really coming down hard on me. And they were buying like $100,000, $200,000 worth of stuff a month from us at that time. And he said, if you don't, GM will never buy from you. And I was getting the same ultimatum from Boeing. And I was feeling very depressed. And he said, starting today, no order for you. I left Detroit. I called home from airport. And I said, boy, what's going on? He said, we got a big order from GM today. Oh, this guy told me that we've been shut out of GM. And then that's when I said, oh, should I listen to this technology jar at GM or should I listen to this purchase order they issued today? And I learned to say purchase orders always trump the threats. So I came back and told the guy, we're not going to do OSI. If you don't buy from us, that's fine. And same thing happened with Boeing. The Boeing guys sent me a contract, said I have to sign up for consequential damages for if our software causes any damage, I have signed. I said, take your business elsewhere. As a matter of fact, we don't intend to sell it to you. And all of a sudden, Boeing couldn't do without us.
Wait, could you dig into this a bit more? So you're talking about there's this technology czar or whatever.
Yeah, all these companies have technology czars.
These people are not actually, are they in the IT department? Are they not?
No, they work for CEO. They work for the board. They set it up. So here's the full story. This technology czar was setting standards for all of GM. And GM had built this factory in Kalamazoo to build trucks. They were one of the first automated robotic factory to build trucks. And he was using the latest technology, using the networking, not our networking, OSI protocols. And this was short-range technology. And so he was telling us that that's our future, not you, unless you do it. And they had this Wall Street meeting to show them the plant, this Kalamazoo plant. And I don't know if you the famous story, you can dig up the Wall Street Journal. So all these Wall Street reporters show up, analysts show up, and this robot painted all of them with a paint. sprayed, because it was automatic, it was supposed to be painted the trucks, it painted them. And that story, and immediately the 100,000 hours, it told me that the operating manager doesn't give a damn about standards.
And what year is this?
1985.
Okay. I remember I visited a GM plant in 1991, and they had all these robots that were, sitting there gathering dust because somebody at headquarters had ordered them for the plant manager in Wilmington, and the plant manager was like, "We're not going to use these things."
So that's when I realized the plant manager has to meet his quota. He has to meet his numbers. He doesn't give a damn about that. The protocols. And so somebody asked me, where did you get your confidence? The purchase orders were coming in, and we were shipping. So once I realized that, hey, that's the only language I need to understand. It's just for buying or not for me. There was nothing else, that mattered. And we were shipping 50,000 PC boards a month. And we're shipping 100 to 150 wax boards a month. So numbers were looked very good. So I tell people that there was 1 million or so connections sold by us by the time the internet happened as a more public thing. It happened so rapidly because we had this stuff all over. And there was a partnership between Sun Microsystem, Excelan, and somebody else. We used to hold connectathons, where you could bring your hardware, your software, to make sure it's compatible. And the connectathons made the TCP/IP very, very compatible. You had to work with Excelan implementation to be considered TCP/IP. So by the end of '86, we were in a totally different league.
I think we changed our tune marketing wise. For a long while, we were saying we were going to support OSI.
Yeah, we were going to support everything.
Yeah, we were going to support everything. And then after a while, we started saying, well, we'll support it if we have to, but we're committed to TCP/IP because we think it's what works. Yeah. And the line worked. I mean, people would buy.
Yeah.
Why? So if you had to summarize in a nutshell, like why all of the kind of strategy folks, the gurus and so forth, were pushing OSI. I mean, it's because it has fewer layers, or it has more layers, I guess. Right? What was the?
Yeah. So I'll give you a very simple answer. TCP/IP was evolving under real use. There was a TCP/IP had this robust process of all the RCPs, George.
Yeah, the RPCs, but didn't align to doing it.
So somebody will propose we ought to have this feature, this word, and he will write a RPC or whatever they.
RFCs. Yeah, standards documents.
Yeah.
They were designed
and put out in, and everybody will implement, and this the connector will test. TCP/IP was adding features and becoming more and more and more, and OSI was being taught by the scientists with no implementation and no real use anywhere. So I used to say, so one day, all these plant managers and all these office guys will rip up their TCP/IP implementations and replace that with OSI. Give me a break. So I became so convinced. I was fanatic about that one. Yeah, this is not ever going to happen. Because a real working solutions. And I told you about that Kalamazoo plant. Working solutions, evolving, improving, adding features. Anytime we need this, and somebody will write the RPC and people will start implementing and start testing. So I was so let me tell you a story about Siemens. Siemens was a customer who bought our TCP/IP from us in 1985, and they made me write. They signed a contract with us that I will never tell anybody that Siemens is a customer of Excelan. So we signed a deal with them where we selling to them TCP/IP and Ethernet boards, but we have a signed agreement that we will never tell anybody that Siemens is a customer of Excelan. because they were 100% behind OSI, but they were shipping TCP/IP from us to their customers. And so it was amazing. We are making money, we're doing well, but we're not supposed to say anything. So once the TCP/IP started to happen, they came and asked me for a release. So they could announce that they have been Excelan's early customer. Which was kind of amazing, All right, should I give them the permission to announce or not? So there were a lot of things like that happened, which were, TCP/IP was happening, evolving, improving, bigger and bigger use, and OSI was all taught.
I don't think we ever heard the end of OSI until the web actually put an end to it.
Oh yeah. Once the web happened, there was no way things were going to change. Once I became convinced that the working solutions, the operating managers are not going to rip up that and put up the corporate mandated OSI. I was 100% convinced of that one by end of 86, early 87.
What role did the OEMs play in creating this confusion of we'll solve all problems? Because when you decided to go end user, then you could put your foot on the ground.
And... So now it became easy for OEM to buy from us, because if you are an NCR, you're selling your NCR tower machines into the world, it had to connect to the people's PCs, and it had to connect to people's switches, it had to connect to people's mainframe. And earlier they were going to offer their own networking, which was sort of, but now they wanted to make sure that they had a polished end user product. So we would do for NCR, hey, our Unix part will give you 40% discount and you don't sell to your users. So we had the NCR end user package. So for Unix guys, we ended up doing end user packages that we did everything for them, with our branding on it, and they will attach to their machine itself, because they became easier for them to tell the world, hey, our machine will fit into your environment.
Yeah. Is it almost like if you go with an assertive point of view to an OEM, that's better as opposed to leaving it to them?
Well, much later I discovered that was the case, right? But when we were early on selling, we were nobody. We were begging for business here and there, right? And much later I learned that OEM will force you to do a sort of a porting for them, maintaining for them, while they're not paying you any revenue. Because you're nobody, right? Later we said, no, you pay me the porting fee, you pay me the maintenance fee, you pay me this, you pay me that. So but that was part of me becoming confident CEO. Early on, please give us some business. So let me tell you a story about NCR. This is a real meet of A's.
NCR is an OEM, right?
Yeah, NCR is the OEM. We signed a deal with them in April, May of 85. They were big contract. They all the conditions defined. They will give us 90-day notice to buy boards, and if they so we can buy parts and build, and they will give us expediting charges if they need a board at a shorter notice. If they needed, if we had to FedEx, they will pay at FedEx charges. So we are very happy we got the NCR deals. So June, they were supposed to give us order for 200 boards. I had bought the parts and manufactured the boards. No order in June. It's about the last day of the month, on June 30th, they call and say, hey, we need 200 boards. Oh, thank God, we have built, can you FedEx them? I said, we need the FedEx charges. No, you want shipper or not? Yes, sir, I want ship. So I shipped up the boards, 200 boards, ate the FedEx charges, did the expediting charges. July, I anticipate they will charge 200 boards a day. I built. Same thing happened. They came on the last day. We FedEx. August, we built the same thing. They came on the last day. I said, I don't have the boards to ship you. what do you mean you don't have the board to ship? Yeah. We are the NCR. I said, well, our contract says that you have to give me 90-day notice. You have to pay me expedite charges. You have to pay. What do you mean, we are NCR? I said, I'm not. I'm not shipping. About an hour before 5 p.m. The general manager comes and says, we need the boards. We can't ship our machines if we can't make our numbers if you don't have your boards. I said, I'm sorry to hear that one. But we have a deal. He said, of course we have a deal. Haven't we been honoring the deal? I said, no, you have not been honoring the deal. I made them pay the expediting charges for June and July, and FedEx charges for June and July before I released the board for August. You remember that, Dwayne?
Yeah, that's not the NCR story I thought you were going to tell, but that's a good one too.
Yeah. So what happened on this time? From that point on, NCR was very well behaved with us, and my board attitude towards me changed phenomenally after that one, because we didn't need their business in August because I had enough revenue without them, and I was trying to set that the relationship back on that. So I learned that every business equation has a power equation, and you need to know which side of the power equation you are on. Either you drop your pants or you tell the other guy to drop his pants. If you don't, right? So they made me drop my pants twice, and third time it was my turn. So these are things which gave me the confidence that I was not only thinking right, but I was acting right. And NCR, when you tell the story of the NCR story, I don't remember which one you were thinking of.
Oh, it was real briefly. I got sent to Raleigh because none of their boards were working, none of their computers were working. This is early on in the relationship with NCR. And I got sent with a NutCracker that they had already bought it. No, I took the NutCracker with me. I remember that. And they were saying, our network doesn't work, you got to fix it. Turns out they had installed their own memory chips on our cards, and they weren't the right specification. So they had to ship all those boards back to us. And we had to pull their chips out and replace them with ours. I can't remember what we did, and we charged them for everything. Plus I got to come home.
Yeah. But I'll tell you on the business front, I had become very confident by end of 86. By 85, I was feeling very good about myself. Jim Tollenon, and I had a very good partnership. Jim was the CFO. He was a very respected, Wall Street CFO. He was on the board of NASDAQ for a while, in 87, right after our IPO.
So Kanwal, how much of this was shaping or like made you mentor so many people in the Valley once you left Novell?
Yeah. So what happened to me, my life was very lonely and very hard, with nobody to talk to, right? Nobody to go and get the advice from. And so I used to say it shouldn't be that hard. It should, the whole basis of Thai and me becoming mentor was my own personal experience. And I have now talked to thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. By the way, I have about half a dozen CEOs as my mentees at any given time, even public company CEOs.
Even people that are large conglomerate CEOs, right?
Yeah, big guys, yeah.
Yeah. You'd mentioned, I've seen you with Ratan Tata and folks like that as well.
Yeah. We don't make them public because it's not good for anybody, right?
Right.
And so yeah. I guess that should be, George, you want to add anything because you're fairly quiet?
Well, is there a question I might help with? I was involved in the TCP/IP development back in the 80s, and we're really focused on that period, right? One of the significant things we did at the time was to take the Berkeley implementation of TCP/IP. Like Kanwal was saying, we contracted to have that ported into our boards, and we could only support a few connections. One of the important changes was to tune the implementation so we could support a reasonable number of TCP/IP connections for like a high-end workstation or a multi-user computer. That technology carried us a long way. In fact, we had a project to implement protocols ourselves from scratch, and I think we learned from that there wasn't too much point in that. We got more benefit out of adapting the open source software for TCP/IP and applications into our environment and focusing more on the framework for their portability across different systems.
And when you guys went all in on TCP/IP, what was it really, that you could just move fastest with the standard, that you had the expertise in the area? That,
No. That was a very simple decision. TCP/IP was the only protocol which was heterogeneous. U.S. Department of Defense had spent a huge amount of time in to make TCP/IP compatible between different environments. The flaw of TCP/IP was it was supposed to be slow and stagey. It had so much error return. It was designed for slow long haul networks, right? Which were error prone. So it was thought as a network, designed for the network which are slow. As a result, TCP/IP itself is slow because it has so much error recovery built in. So when I was thinking through TCP/IP, I said, if I put an underlying network which is not error prone, which is reliable and fast, there's no reason for TCP/IP to be slow itself, because it's not going to invoke those error routines, recovery routines. So it should be just as fast as any other protocol. I know it has all those error recovery stuff in there, but it won't be used. But that wasn't the wisdom. I was brain dead at one of the technology conferences for putting a finely tuned automobile behind a horse. Because Ethernet was a finely tuned 10 megabit network. TCP/IP was running on thinner, 1200 baud slow networks. So everybody believed that TCP/IP will not be fast enough, efficient enough on the Ethernet, and we proved them wrong. Once we put the TCP/IP on Ethernet, it was just as fast as anything out there. It was coming from again, me and Jay will talk about that one. Hey, if those error routines are not never invoked, it shouldn't slow down. If underlying network doesn't produce errors, it shouldn't have any need. So that thing we had to prove in the marketplace. But the advantage was it was the only protocol that would collect all these different disparate operating systems with the interoperating applications. FTP, Telnet. What else was there? Those two are the original, George?
Yeah, those were the important things at the time. Just Telnet and FTP were like SFTP, just a variation on that. Also, the Berkeley stuff, the remote.
The Berkeley debut, it was remote copy and remote login.
That took a long ways when it came to people who were used to command line computing. And then in the late 90s, the game changed completely.
It's like you transfer a file from a mainframe to a digital network to PC to Unix machine, without any problem. And that was a phenomenal improvement over what was available. People used to send the tar tapes, FedEx tapes to each other.
Yeah, that's why TCP/IP succeeded over OSI. Was it worked and it was open source. People could get compatible implementation just by using the open source to run on their systems. And we were running with that. Whereas the people in OSI not only didn't have solutions at the top for compatibility between systems, they didn't have an open source reference base.
Yeah, they had to build from scratch.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking of Kubernetes that way. Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to figure out a modern day analogy to this, and I think Kubernetes is what came up in both our heads that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it succeeded as a stand for container-based computing, whereas other things like VMware could not run as fast against it, really, with the diversity of solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a keynote speaker at, there was there's another person I should mention. There was a person by the name of Dan Lynch. Dan Lynch made the TCP/IP happen as much as anybody else. Dan was the guy at the UCLA, in late 70s, early 80s, when the TCP/IP came out of UCLA. That's where it came out of, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And the first 4 nodes was set up at UCLA, at Princeton, at Oxford, and there was 4th node at Berkeley. He was the one who went and installed those. That was the original backbone of the TCP/IP. And Dan did that, and then Dan came and worked for us as a consultant in '85. After he became sure that he had done the TCP/IP network up and running. So I hired him, and he and I agreed to do this trade show called the Interop. Where we are going to make the interoperability as a theme, and everybody would bring their stuff. And it was based upon what B and Sun were doing, the Connectathon. So we transferred the Connectathon to Interop. And I was the keynote speaker at the first Interop in Monterey. And I had we had just done public, and I had just bought by Porsche. And I told in that conference that TCP/IP can will never lose out, because it's working, it's evolving under real use. It is widely available on all sorts of machines. Why would anybody want to change that to OSI, which is unknown, maybe future, maybe it will work or not. And that speech was one of my highlights. Can
we find that speech somewhere, or?
I think I just told you I don't know if I still have it someplace. I'll look for it, but I'll tell you the basic essence was businesses eventually have to operate on a reliable plumbing, and TCP/IP has become reliable underpinning. And why would anybody replace that with something for what logical reasons? Large number of people are using it. It's evolving and improving to this process of RCPs, and free sources are available for anybody to come and implement. I say this is the ideal world. Why would anybody want to ever change? And that has proven to be the case. Yeah, I guess that should be enough for everybody today, huh? Sumit?
Yeah, I don't think we can ever stop talking about this, Kanwal. So at some point, yeah, I think we should put a bow on this, at least for version 1. And then, so Greg, we can talk about like how to productionize this. I think.
Yeah, we got a lot of themes.
We got a lot of themes.
I think you have the access to all these people.
Yeah.
They can bring a different perspective.
Yeah. So I think that's good. So I think, yeah, Greg, me and you will get together, and then Kanwal will get back to you on what, on how it looks. But yeah, hopefully we can.
Yeah, I do have excellent stuff around me all the time. And maybe I can show you. Look at the wall there. You see it?
No, so you're gonna have to remove.
I'm gonna have to. That is the virtualization.
Yeah, remove the background.
Yeah, I need that the virtual background. I have this is from the lobby of a lobby of oh, come on.
Yeah.
So where you go is stop, choose virtual background, and then say none.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh, nice. Big fan.
That's from the lobby of Excelan. I know George and
Wow, yeah. So I got the same logo here.
Oh, nice.
and I also have this another Excelan. Yeah, I got lots of Excelan.
Nice. Nice.
It's been Excelan was merged into Novell in 1989 June.
1989 June.
Yeah, so it's been long time.
Right.
All right. Yeah, we have anytime you guys want to talk more, I can never stop talking about Excelan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great to meet everybody. Sumit and I are going to go chat about this, and we'll get back to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was fun. I'll take care.
Yeah, bye, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks, Kanwal.